Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I hope you're having a great Tuesday. I hope everyone has a good day at work. But like I was saying, welcome in to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Today we have a big show. Last night, Caitlin Clark put on a show for the world, and I have never seen so many people talking about women's basketball. It was a lot of fun to watch. We're going to break that down, as well as the entire Final Four that is now set, the incredible matchups. Very excited to see the rest of that tournament. We're also going to talk a little bit about the NFL, the MLB no-hitter that happened last night. The Astros were the first no-hitter of the season, just 5 games into the year. Lots of historic stuff happened there. We'll break all of that down in our second segment. In our third segment, we're going to go into the NFL, talk a little bit about who I think is going to have a better bounce-back season of the second-year quarterbacks, whether that be Bryce Young or Will Levis or any of these guys. Will break down some of these younger quarterbacks heading into their second year and what they're looking at improving. And then our fourth and final segment, we are going to talk a little bit about the NHL playoffs. That season is coming down the stretch. There's a lot of really tight playoff races, especially out there in the East with that final wild card spot. So we'll break all of that down and more here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network today. But before we do, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. We'll have a little discussion about what you had to say. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen there for you, me, and everybody else to see it. We appreciate anything that you do give. Once again, that link to leave a tip or donation is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, the big story of last night, and that we're going to talk about on our show today, is Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark absolutely cooks LSU. LSU, who beat Iowa in the championship game of last year's Women's March Madness final. LSU and Angel Reese, the defending champions. Iowa and Caitlin Clark get their revenge in what kind of was a rivalry game. If you remember back to last season, the anticipation for that championship game led to the highest total viewership of a women's game ever. And now you take a look, and I haven't seen the numbers today, but I would put a pretty hefty bet on the fact that this game last night between Iowa and LSU had a higher viewership total than that. Probably the highest out of every tournament game ever. That was the most people I've ever seen talk about a women's basketball game. I went into school and work today, and they all were, that's the first thing that came out of their mouths. It was, did you see what Caitlin Clark did to them? 41 points, 12 assists, 7 boards, nearly a triple-double to send them to the Final Four to take on Dynasty in UConn. Paige Beckers over there. There was another great battle last night we'll get into over there between Paige Beckers and USC, but that was not just for women's basketball, but that was one of the most exciting games of college basketball that I've watched all season. That game between LSU and Iowa. There were so many storylines going in there. There was lots of intrigue heading in. The rivalry between these two incredible athletes in Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. And then just to watch Caitlin Clark go to work. It's still amazing to me how she can shoot from anywhere on the court. There wasn't a shot that she put up. And there's plenty of shots that she puts up that if anybody else put up, I would be like, I can't believe that you just put that shot up. That was a mistake. But Caitlin Clark puts them up, and I'm like, you know what? That's going in every single time. She is a very special athlete. She gets to take on Paige Beckers and UConn. UConn, the 3 seed, beats USC, the 1 seed, to make it to that Final Four. Another incredible game. You had Juju there, who set the freshman record for points in a season. She's incredible. She's going to be really good. She was 1 point shy of setting the tournament record for points as a freshman, 110 points. and the record was set by a Tennessee player who scored 111 in 6 games. She did it in 4. That is crazy. That's incredible. She is going to be so good, and she's a freshman, so she will stay in college for at least one more year, most likely. Uh, the future of women's basketball has never looked brighter. You have these huge emerging stars already with a little bit of rivalry going against each other in college, and these two are going to be rivals in the WNBA as well. Caitlin Clark already declared that she's going to the WNBA. She's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Angel Reese is going to be up there. There's a girl from Stanford who is going to be a top 3 pick as well. It is going to be a loaded draft class for the WNBA this year, and I'm very excited, very excited for it. This is going to be, I think, this kind of marks the turning point in the way that people view women's basketball. I've seen people talk about it before, but I've never seen so many people talk about it with excitement. There was so much excitement and joy, people talking about that basketball game between LSU and Iowa, and it's really great to see. It really is. I'm so happy that people are starting to watch women's basketball because it's very fun. These guys work so hard, and it's great to see the sport grow. But the Final Four is set. Like I said, Caitlin Clark and Iowa are taking on Paige Beckers and UConn on one side of the tournament. Again, it's going to be another one of those star-studded matchups. Two of the best players in women's college basketball going head-to-head against each other. We'll see one of the greatest coaches of all time and on UConn side. This is his 23rd Final Four. 23 Final Fours is insane. And he has a chance to, for the third time, win a national championship at the same time as the men's team. And so does NC State. NC State is going to be playing South Carolina, a juggernaut of a women's basketball team, undefeated into the Final Four. They take on a Wolfpack team, a 3 seed coming into it, who just destroyed Stanford. Stanford was the 1 seed. Stanford, who has a very storied legacy in women's basketball, college basketball. I think they're 3rd in wins all time. It's tough to beat South Carolina. They faced 1 or 2 tough scares. I was watching one of their games earlier in the tournament, and it came down to the wire. They kind of missed a couple free throws, but then they come out and they dominate every other game like they have been doing. It kind of mirrors the men's side in a sense, where you have a dominant team, UConn and South Carolina in this case, and then you on the other side you have Darling, a team that I know it's a Cinderella run in the men's side with NC State, but a team that everybody's rooting for in NC State and Iowa on the other side, facing off against a team that's just been good for a very long time, Purdue and UConn, for the men and the women there. And then the other side, you have a team that, is good, but no one really expected to make this deep of a run in Alabama and NC State for the women. It kind of mirrors each other very well, and I'm very excited for these Final Fours. I think that these games are going to be amazing. I'm very excited for that DJ Burns Zach Edey matchup, and I'm very excited for that Caitlin Clark Paige Beckers matchup as well. It's going to be tough to beat South Carolina. South Carolina, like I said, is undefeated, and they haven't looked particularly stressed at any point this season. They had a 54-point spread in that first game, which is ridiculous. 54 points. That's more than some teams score in an entire game, and they beat them. They covered that. They beat them by 55 points or something like that. They are a dominant basketball team, top to bottom, front to back. They're very good. We'll see on Friday exactly how this goes, but these Final Fours are going to be really fun. I can't wait to see it. there's a couple things with the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese thing that I think is interesting, and we'll get a little bit into that at another time. But just real briefly, I don't know if you guys saw the press conference that Angel Reese and her teammates did after the loss, but the fact that she's kind of been painted as a villain in the media is a very interesting thing to me. She is a good person. This happens when you have rivalries. People are going to take a side, but it's not really all her fault. There's a lot of things surrounding it. At first it was just the way that she is. When she plays and she wins, she talks, and when you talk and you lose, people are going to talk back to you. That's just how it goes. But also, more recently, people have been calling LSU as a team villains, and I think a lot of that is because of their coach Kim Mulkey. Uh, there was an article that came out about her in the Washington Post, which very good read. She's not a very good person, but she's the coach there. She's the face of it, and Angel Reese kind of takes a lot of blowback just because she's on that team, and I kind of feel bad for her. But we'll break all of that down in a show tomorrow. I want to talk a little bit more about that. I want to get a whole segment on that. But anyway, in our next segment coming up, we're going to transition out of the NCAA, move into the MLB. There was a no-hitter last night. The first one of the season. April Fool's no-hitter. Very early in the season. In fact, the earliest ever. But we'll break all that along with some of the major storylines that have been happening in baseball over the first week-ish of the season. Stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.